back to another episode of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. I'm Brad.
This is Zach.
And I'm Heifer.
All right, here we are, week 2 recap, second week of the season, and it was a little more predictable than the first week, thank God. I don't know that I could take too many more of those weeks like we had in week 1, but it was still a pretty interesting week. Nonetheless, I think things are kind of shaking out a little bit. We're seeing starting to see some patterns emerge. What game do you guys want to go through first?
Let's start with the Thursday night game, Cincinnati-Cleveland. I picked the Browns to win that game. They ended up winning. The score was 35-30. I will say that Baker Mayfield, in my opinion, did not look very impressive. He had a solid game. They got the win, but in my view, I don't think he was impressive at all. What was impressive on the Browns side was Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They both combined for 32 carries, 210 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But I will say, from the Bengals' perspective, Joe Burrow will be a great quarterback in the future. He looked impressive again. He had 316 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The only thing he can improve on is his accuracy. He had 37 throws, or 61 throws, and he completed only 37 of them. But he looked great. I think in the next few years, he's going to be a great quarterback for the league.
Yeah, it's tough to tell. He's thrown over 100 passes, Joe Burrow has, in his first 2 games. So, the stats are a little misleading. Sure, he's putting up yards and touchdowns, but it's good that he's not turning the ball over. A.J. Green does not look like the same person. Some of those drops were completely on him. I mean, he was targeted 13 times and only caught 3 of them. And, this is 3 years ago, one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league, and he looked terrible on Thursday. But Joe Burrow showed some promise. I think that team needs to use Joe Mixon more. They paid him. I don't know why they're not using him. I understand, they get down in the game, but you got to keep your running back involved in the game. That's one of the, if not the best player on that offense at the current moment. So the Bengals have some stuff to work on, but the Browns, I thought the Browns looked really impressive for a team that had 3 of their starters in the secondary out, and their defense. I mean, sure, they let up 30 points, but they performed a lot better against the Bengals than they did the Browns. One of those touchdowns they let up was off of a Baker Mayfield turnover. He threw a really stupid interception, and then I gave the ball back, and they scored 7 off that. But like Zach said, Baker, not really impressive, but I like that Kevin Stefanski let the running backs take it. They're taking the ball out of Baker's hands. They're not going to let him be the guy that wins games. And the offense we saw from the Browns looked a lot like Kevin Stefanski's offenses that worked really well with Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. So if they keep that going forward, and if this defense can get healthy and keep improving, then I think the Browns are going to be looking pretty good.
And so there's a couple things I want to say on the tail end of this. And you actually mentioned that Burrow's stats were a little misleading, and then you kind of came back around and you said what I'm getting ready to say. And your point is valid. Your point is taken that he's thrown over 100 times, but he's still 361 yards on Thursday.
316.
He's a rookie. This is impressive. Now there's a lot that goes with it. I hate to keep saying this about the season. The season's a big part of it. The preseason, lack of preseason. 2020 is a weird year. It's hard to prepare for a quarterback that you don't know anything about. I mean, you can watch all the college game film you want, but you don't know. Next year later this year and next year they'll have film on this kid, so things will change, and his ability to adapt as a sophomore and beyond will dictate his future here. But as of right now, I think I got to jump side with you, Zach. Not that there's sides, Jeff. I know you agree. This kid may end up living up to his billing. I've been impressed so far. On the flip side, Mayfield's had a lot of time to get it together. He even said it himself after the game the other night. I mean, he's surrounded by talent. You can't give a guy much more. He's just got everything he needs. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what we're waiting for. And as far as them looking good, we have to keep that in context, right? So when we break this down, it is an NFL game. They are NFL players. It is an interdivision game against a rivalry. Bets kind of go out the window. But in the end, it's still just the Bengals. And if you want to be considered a good team in this league, you're going to have to do a little better than barely beating the Bengals at home on a Thursday night. But I digress. I picked the Bengals. I thought the Browns were a bigger disaster than what they showed on Thursday, and I'm man enough to admit I was wrong, at least for Thursday night. And we'll see. I'm not going to pick them this week, so don't push me. But I can at least man up, right?
Yeah, true that. At least you're taking it.
Yeah, signing the L, right? Is that what the? Okay, so man, let's talk about the Bears.
The Bears.
Growing up in the Midwest before the Colts were there, the Bears were the team. They were the team. And, my parents and their parents, anybody who was interested in football, it was the Bears because there wasn't football in Indianapolis for a long time. And I want to take an opportunity to talk about this right now because I don't know how many more times we can expect Trubisky to lead the Bears to 2-0. They're 2-0.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I'll just throw this out there right now. 2 weeks in a row, I picked the Bears to lose. I was wrong. They have surprised me. I don't know what's going on, but more power to them, I guess.
Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly Clash of the Titans with this game with the Bears and the Giants.
True.
So, but Trubisky is he's doing what he's getting it done. You don't care what kind of stats you put up. You want your quarterback to lead the team to victory, and that's exactly what he's doing. You can't argue that.
Yeah, I don't. Is his job safe though yet? Has he clinched it for the rest of the season, or do you think he still needs to win another game?
No, if he rattles off 3 losses, what do you think?
Yeah, true. Oh,
It's still early. What do you think, Jeff?
His job is certainly not safe. I think it would have been, it would have been looking better if they would have performed better in the second half of that game. But the Giants were without Saquon after the first quarter, and the Bears didn't put up any second half points. The defense almost the Giants would have scored. They just didn't have enough time there, but they were at the 5 or 10 or something like that. So they almost let this game slip away. Trubisky looked pretty bad in the second half. So this Bears team has just not played tough teams so far. So I expect them. They have a really tough schedule the rest of the way, and going forward, it's definitely not going to look the way it has the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, who do the Bears have this week? We're getting ahead of ourselves. We do a preview, but looking ahead, who do the Bears have this week? The Falcons. Well, there you go. Trubisky's 3-0. We're getting. You know what? Let's slide right into this. Let's talk about Dan Quinn, shall we? It's a bad sign when meltdowns are now the status quo of your program. What happened with the Falcons yesterday, now everybody today is suddenly thrown back to Super Bowl 51, and now Dan Quinn is associated with not being able to hold a lead and losing games that he should be winning. Now, if you don't think that if all the fans and all the media are talking about it, what do you think's going on in the locker room?
that's a very good point.
Yeah. So, so in 2019, the Falcons started 1-7. They finished 7-9. All right. So that's just the opposite. He was able to come back, but still you started 1-7. All right. Bad news. We went over this in the preview, so I'll make this quick. He's only 43-37. I think that's actually changed now because now he's 43-39. So he's almost a 500 coach in Atlanta. Only won the Division once in 2016. Blew the biggest lead in Super Bowl history. And now they're 0-2 after an embarrassing collapse yesterday. Dak put up 450 yards, and this guy's supposed to be a defensive guru. So I don't think this is an emergency, but the ship is sinking. I don't know. This is a bail out of the ship, kind of everybody bail kind of thing, but I think that if the Falcons miss a playoff, then Dan Quinn needs to go. I think he's a good coach. He'll land another coordinating job somewhere, probably end up as a head coach again, in one of these guys that probably will get it right the second time he comes around. But the fact is he's lost control of his football team. The morale is leaking all over the place, and I honestly don't know that he can get it back.
No, I don't think, like you said, that you don't. It's not really emergency mode for you, but it is for me because this guy is a defensive coach coming into the Falcons. He was touted as one of the better defensive play callers in the league, and every year he's been there, that defense has gotten worse. No matter how much different talent they brought in there, they keep getting worse, and that offense is so good. The Cowboys were -3 on turnovers, and they won the game. There's no way you could do that. And that defense, it looked solid. They were stopping the Cowboys, right? All those weapons on the Cowboys, and they look good. And then they let up 16 points in 5 minutes and lose the game. And the breakdown that's been happening with the Falcons over the last 2.5 years or so has to be attributed to Dan Quinn. There's no two ways about it. Matt Ryan is still putting up MVP-like numbers. Julio and Calvin Ridley are an amazing 1-2 duo. There's no reason this team should be losing, and it's all on Dan Quinn. If I was Arthur Blank, like I told you guys yesterday while we were watching the games, I'd fire Dan Quinn right now. There's no more waiting. Start it right now. You're going to find another guy in the offseason. Just get rid of him and get that cancer out of the locker room.
I really have nothing to add. Jeff just hit it out the park. I mean, Matt Ryan's a former league MVP. He threw for 4 touchdowns yesterday. Your offense isn't the problem. It's your defense. He's a defensive-minded coach, so I agree. He's got to go.
Yeah, and I want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt because he certainly understands this game better than I do. I don't want to sit here and act like I'm, but I do know enough about leadership in organizations that he can't regain control at this point. It's in a tailspin, and you get to a point where you're so far in a tailspin where you can't get out of it. And I think that's where they're at. And if you can't get the guys to buy in, if they're not buying in, it's not going to work. Now they're just collecting paychecks. It's hard to reverse that. I agree he's got to go. But I would like to say the reason, the terminology we're using, where I use it's not an emergency, Jeff uses emergency, because I want to talk about the emergency next.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this one.
Yeah, I know you know where I'm going with this. And anybody who's paying attention to what I'm talking about knows exactly what I'm getting ready to say. Remember when I said in the AFC East preview that someone claimed that the Jets were the dark horse to win the AFC, and I called bullshit. You guys remember that?
Yep.
So here's exactly what I said. Jesus Christ, Adam Gase. Seriously? I say that. Look, I say that because I saw someone write an article calling the New York Jets the dark horse to win the AFC East. Are you kidding me right now? I don't know if this guy's actually making money for what he's writing or whatever. This is just look. Let's run through Adam Gase real quick. What is Gase known for? He was the offensive coordinator on John Fox in Denver and won a Super Bowl. But damn it, he had Peyton Manning. I could have been the offensive coordinator and won the Super Bowl that year with Peyton Manning. We all know what Peyton Manning's known for. He's different than other quarterbacks in the sense that the offense ran through Peyton Manning. The entire offense ran through Peyton Manning. By the time he was in Denver, he could have been an offensive coordinator himself. And so I can't. That's it. That's all he's got. And they didn't even win, right? I mean, the year he took them, I think they got blown out. I mean, he had 1 year of success coaching one of the greatest, if not the greatest statistically quarterback to ever play the game, and that's it. Other than that, he can name drop Nick Saban and John Fox. I don't know why this guy keeps getting hired. He hasn't proven anything. He had one good season with Miami, 10-6 his first year. He went downhill from there. They ran him out after 3 years. His total record in 4 years is 30-34. And we can talk about whether Sam Darnold's going to do this and the defense is going to do that. I don't care who you're talking about. You can have the fastest car and the best team running in the Indianapolis 500, but if your grandmother's driving it, you're not going to win. It's over. Sorry, Jets fans. It's another year at the bottom of the cellar. It's the only AFC team, in my opinion, without any chance of winning the division. Jeff, I know that you think that the Patriots are gonna do worse. I don't see how there's any way at all that Adam Gase has a better record at the end of the year than Bill Belichick. I don't. If nothing else, Belichick will punch him in the face before the game to give him a concussion. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't see it. I can't stand. You guys know I can't stand coaches that keep getting this North Turner, Jim Caldwell crap where these guys don't do anything, and then you have good coaches who aren't given a chance to warm up and get things going. I just don't see it from New York. So at this point, the Jets look like they may not even win a game this year. They might go 0-16, and that's almost as hard as going 16-0 in this league. This is going to be an accomplishment. Now I'm starting to wonder, is Adam Gase on Bill Belichick's secret payroll? I mean, he ran the Dolphins in the ground. Now he's running the Jets in the ground. Maybe we can get him in Buffalo and we can keep winning the division and streak that, go from 17 seasons to 24 seasons just thanks to Adam Gase. I'm just asking questions. I don't understand what the hell's going on here.
I can see Bill standing over on the side with this creepy little look going,
That's right. And we know Ryan Tannehill agrees with me, and now as well as Mike Vrabel. I mean, the three of us absolutely agree that Tannehill is a good quarterback who was caught in Gase's evil clutches in Miami. And Miami blamed him and practically gave him away. And now he's with a new team. The Titans are 2-0. They made a playoff run last year. He had a 145 quarterback rating yesterday against the Jags. Clearly, the problem in Miami was not Ryan Tannehill, right? So here we go. Apparently, iconic ESPN analyst Mike Greenberg agrees also. Let me read what Mike Greenberg said. Greenberg said, "So the acting owner of the Jets thinks Adam Gase is a brilliant offensive mind. To that, I reply, what on earth could possibly have given you that impression? There is certainly no evidence that this is true. What there is, in fact, is overwhelming evidence that the exact opposite is true. Consider that in no season that Peyton Manning was not quarterback, that any of Gase's teams ever finished in the top half of the league in scoring. The last three seasons, in fact, they finished 28th, 26th, and 31st in a 32-team league. In 17 games under Gase, the Jets have scored 33 touchdowns, and they punted 93 times. They have scored 24% of their possessions. That's the worst in the league. They've gone 3 and out 44% of the time. That's the worst in the league. Their average drive has gained 23 yards, all the worst in the NFL. This pretty much sums it up. All right, this is exactly what I've been saying since his second year in Miami, but I've got more. That shouldn't surprise you. It's time to go. Gase needs fired right now. He needs to be gone. There's no waiting. There's no reason to wait whatsoever. The Jets season is over. They can get worse. As remarkable as that is, they can get worse. This is a disaster. The season is already weird. Everyone is already behind. We've talked about with the preseason. Everyone's already behind. So it's not like you're going to miss something. The honest truth is that the Jets might actually get better with an interim head coach. They might find a spark to send them in the other direction if they cut their losses and make the change right now.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but let's wait a week on firing Gase because they play the Colts next week. so let's wait a week, but I'm right there with you.
I don't even know if Chucky or Bill Belichick or Bill Parcells, I don't know if anybody could turn around that fast to beat the Colts next week. I don't want to. I want to make a distinction here because again, this guy knows more about the game than I do. I think.
That's debatable.
You would think.
So he's not like Jim Caldwell, like Norv Turner, these guys that we keep talking about, right? He needs to have a coordinator position. He's not in the leadership position that the head coach requires. There's a difference between being a coordinator and being the head of an organization. They're two completely – you cannot be an offensive genius and still be an amazing head coach in this league or anywhere. So I just don't want to completely cut the guy down like he's an idiot, because I'm sure he does know exactly what he's doing. He just doesn't have the leadership skills apparently to make it happen. He's made a bad football team even worse. And you know what? He's making Matt Patricia look good. I mean, come on. It's time to get him out of here.
Fire Gase.
Should we hashtag fire Gase? Is that
It's
I'm
probably
sure someone
already
in New York
trending.
already is.
Yeah.
You know, I actually liked your idea about them firing Gase to put in an intern because, like Zach said, after they play the Colts, of course. But I mean, I think if they were to fire Gase and they make Greg Williams the coach, usually anybody that plays for Greg Williams loves Greg Williams. I think he can get the morale on that team up. They still are going to suck because there's just no talent outside of Darnold there. But I think if they get Greg Williams as an interim coach and going forward, that'd be a better move. But they should, just like Dan Quinn, that should be a immediate move.
Yeah. So do we want to talk about the Jets game at all?
There are a lot of injuries.
Yeah, that's what sucks when San Francisco travels all the way across the country, plays an easy team, easy win, and then you suffer the losses. They might as well have lost the game with the injuries that they suffered.
Yeah, they have Nick Bosa's out with an expected torn ACL. That'll be a season ender. Jimmy G has a high ankle sprain, which he could play on, but he's not going to be mobile at all. His accuracy might go down because of the quarterback footwork. And Raheem Mostert is out with the sprained MCL too. That's 3 of your main players right there. So
they also had after Mostert went out, Tevin Coleman, one of the backups, he also left the game with a knee injury, but that hasn't been specified on yet.
I mean, I don't even know that the Tevin Coleman injury is going to be such a big deal. He had 14 carries for 12 yards against the Jets. Like, you're an NFL running back. How do you have 14 carries for only 12 yards? But Jerick McKinnon, the third string backup behind Mostert and Coleman, he had a pretty solid day. He only had 3 carries, but he had 77 yards and a touchdown. So they're looking for him to be the starter next week because I'm pretty sure Mostert's going to be out for a while. But yeah, the Niners are plagued by injuries.
Yeah, and that's gonna. I mean, obviously, I don't mean to speak the obvious here, Mr. Obvious, but that's a competitive division they're in, and this could really, their ship could start sinking early with this.
Yeah, with as good as the Cardinals and the Seahawks have looked, that's the way it seems. Just too ravaged by injuries, going down too soon.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Patriots and the Seahawks. Big game, and I know it was, last night we're skipping over some of the other games, but what a good game! Both of these teams. Look, I want to talk. All right, let me talk about Cam. All right, I want to. Cam looks good in this offense, and leave it to Belichick to know how to mold his system to play to Cam's strengths. I mean, that's what Belichick does. Look, so you got that whole Bobby Knight. This is the way we do things. You try to cram people into your system, and that doesn't work. You get guys like Coach K and Bill Belichick. They have built dynasties out of knowing what they have available and how best to use it. It doesn't surprise me this is happening. I expect that on defense more than offense, but before we thought it was a system, we thought it was a plug and play system, right? We do Garoppolo and these guys come in and they don't miss a beat. Now I'm starting to really think that this is a compliment to the coaching staff that they're doing this with Cam. I know that Belichick people think that he's the devil incarnate, so I'll move on, but this offense could become very dangerous over the next 14 weeks because we've seen what this organization is capable of. So, but I would also like to add that it isn't all Bills above. You see what I did there? Yeah, right. Bills above. Cam Newton. He looks mature. One of the things I noticed yesterday was there was a draw play in the second quarter where they were at the goal line, and Cam took the snap and patiently waited for about a second and a half to 2 seconds until his hold developed, and he darted through it. And that right there, my friends, is a sign of maturity. A guy like Cam 5 years ago, he would have just run it right up your ass and knocked everybody over. But he had the patience to let it develop, and I think that's a huge compliment to him. That it tells me that we talk about running quarterbacks all the time, and their legs, their as their legs age, they have to have something else to fall back on. And I think this is a testament that that's happening for Cam. And most importantly, something else I want to add is we all remember this Super Bowl loss when Cam pouted and threw a fit like a child. Right? Yesterday, he stepped up and took responsibility for losing the game. So we're seeing the growth and maturity from this kid, and with as talented as he is, if he's got now has his head on snuff. First of all, Beelzebub's not going to allow anything else but that, right? So it could be just a matter of Cam is smart enough to know that if he wants to keep his job, he probably ought to step up and take blame for the win and do things later. But still, that will have a positive effect on his growth in the future. So it's a very good thing for him, and I think it shows it's gonna be good for him and extend his career. And God, as much as I hate to say it, maybe even his winning. I don't think we need the Patriots to win anymore, but it's a very good.
God, I hope not.
But I got one last piece of leadership advice for Cam. I'm sure Beelzebub probably already told him this. Stop with the celebrations, man. It was so he. I don't know if you guys if you caught this, but he scored. He was down at the goal line. He thought he scored, right? And he jumped up and he hopped up and he ran over in front of the celebration camera, which says "Celebrate Here," and he had his celebration. After they had already blown the whistle and everybody else was walking back, he's over there with a couple guys celebrating, still celebrating after he realized he has to go back and rerun the play. Next play, they score again. And what's he do? He runs back over in front of the celebration cam and starts to celebrate in an awkward manner that made me think he realized, well, this is stupid that I'm back over here celebrating again. So I want to assure Cam that is a growth moment. Yeah, stop the celebration. You've been in the league long enough. Leave it to the young guys. Be a leader. You don't have to be cold and heartless like Belichick after something happens and already move on. You can be happy. You can high five and tell people good job. But stay off the cameras, man. It's just not a good look.
I thought Cam looked really good last night too. I thought he hit some throws that he wasn't hitting before when he was in Carolina. His arm looks better. He's got plenty of power on his throws. So it's going to be exciting. Hopefully, I've said this a few times and I'll keep saying it. He's on a 1-year deal. Philip Rivers is on a 1-year deal. Hopefully he's a Colt next year. Comes here to win games, but he looked really good. But you can't take anything away from Russell Wilson and what he was able to do. This was his whole career. The first 7 years has been kind of a more defense and run first kind of team with Russ just making magic happen here and there. But they're letting Russ cook, and he's got 9 touchdowns over the first 2 weeks. He's on pace to break Peyton Manning's touchdown record at the moment, and he's balling out. DK Metcalf made Stephon Gilmore look really pedestrian last night. Few different moments. So,
well, hold on. To throw in with that was the first touchdown catch that Stephon Gilmore has given up since 2018.
Wow. Yeah, and I saw a stat last night. The Patriots gave up 4 touchdowns to receivers all of last year and gave up 5 last night. So big changes there, obviously. But Russ is doing his thing right now, and I don't know if anybody can stop him.
Yeah, all 5 of his TDs were to different receivers, and their rushing attack was great too. They had 30 carries for 154 yards. So, with that said, to go back to Cam Newton, he was the only it factor for the Patriots. He had 47 rushing yards. The New England run game as a team only had 67, so he had 47 of the 67. He threw the ball to Edelman. Edelman had a big game, 8 receptions, 179 yards, but Cam was it. And even with Russ and the Seahawks having a huge game like that, the Patriots almost won the game.
Yeah, they on the road in Seattle.
Cam almost racked up his third rushing touchdown right at the end. So Patriots might be a team to watch out for.
And not only did they almost win the game on the road in Seattle, but you know how I feel about Pete Carroll. The Seattle Seahawks might be in a Super Bowl year.
Agreed.
We got a long way to go, but as of right now, in the first 2 weeks, they have my attention, and the Patriots still almost beat them at home. So the Patriots have my attention.
Yeah, very true.
So while we're sitting here talking about quarterbacks that performed really well, I want to talk about Justin Herbert, guy that woke up yesterday probably not even expecting to start the game, but Tyrod Taylor, I think it was during warm-up, started to get a chest tightness, and so they pulled him out. They took him to the hospital. He's all right. And Anthony Lynn said that when Tyrod's healthy again, Tyrod's going to be starting again. But Justin Herbert performed really well yesterday, and if he keeps looking good like that, then it's going to be really hard to put Tyrod back in. You know, he didn't make very many mistakes. He could clean up a couple of his passes, and that comes with experience. You know, he's got to play with these guys more. But I like what Justin Herbert did, and that defense for the Chargers, even without Derwin James is insane. You know, to start the game, the first half they made Patrick Mahomes look pretty bad. Realistically, I believe he didn't even complete 10 passes there in the first half, less than 50% completion percentage. So they were on it, and obviously as the game wore on, the Chiefs did their thing and pulled the win out. But I really liked what Justin Herbert did, and I like the future he has for the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree with you. He had 311 yards, a touchdown, 1 interception. Also had a rushing touchdown, but he looked very poised and almost led his team to a victory over the defending Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing is that as a coach, there's nothing better than having 2 good quarterbacks on your roster. Until your number 1 goes down and your number 2 shows that he deserves to be number 1, and now you have a quarterback controversy that could end up destroying the culture in the locker room and morale. You know, we've seen it time and time again. You get some of the guys in one camp and some of the guys in the other camp, and you know, Herbert is what he did yesterday was amazing, but he's still a rookie. He could come in next week and throw 4 interceptions. You know, he's got a long road ahead of him, and not that he can't do it. He certainly showed yesterday he has the talent to do it. You know, but this is, I mean, this is the reality of this league is that you're a star one day and then you're a nobody the next. And there's a whole lot that goes into this equation. You know, it's weird. You happy for Anthony Lynn that his star quarterback goes down and his backup steps in. But once Tyrod comes back, you know, everyone is going to second guess every decision that he makes from there. You got a guy you gave the job to. You feel like you owe it to him. You got a guy that stepped up and did what you asked him to do. You feel like you owe him something. He puts Tyrod back in, and they lose 2 games. He's gonna feel the pressure from the outside, probably from management. He may throw Herbert back in. He wins 1 game, loses 2 games. Now what do? It just creates there could be a disaster brewing in Los Angeles with this, but for right now, you know, let's let the kid have his due. Let's let the coach have their due. They played a hell of a game and almost beat what we've touted as the most dominant team in the league. I think a lot of that is interconference games. We've talked about that. You know, having these interconference games so early in this season in particular is rough. You know, and the Chiefs can't prepare for Herbert. There's no film, so. Anyway, hats off to the Chargers for what they did yesterday. Hats off to the Chiefs for being the true champions they are and finding a way to make it happen in the end.
True that.
Yeah, Chiefs definitely showed some vulnerability though. The Chargers they ran the ball a lot and for a lot of yards. And they had trouble stopping the run last year too, so they're going to have to figure out a way to stop the run, or they're going to keep getting down in games and having to use Mahomes' arm to come back, and they don't want to get into situations like that again.
Yeah, well, that's the Tom Moore, Peyton Manning ideology there. Just put up more, let them run all over you they want, but just put up more points than they do.
Yeah, true that.
That'll win you some games, but it won't win you a lot of Super Bowls. So they certainly got to get that fixed.
All right, well, let me just throw this out there. Josh Allen, in my opinion, leading the league for the MVP right now. Week 1, monster game. Week 2, set a career high in yards, 417 yards, 4 touchdowns. The Bills are 2-0. Even though they were playing Miami, we've always talked about Miami's on the rise. So I still think Miami's a good team. Barely squeaked it out. I think they should have won that by more than 3 points. But Josh Allen balling out, hands down, in my opinion, leading the league for the MVP voting right now. I expect him to do big things going forward, especially with Stephon Diggs finally showing up after a lackluster week 1. Had 8 receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown too. So John Brown, Stephon Diggs on the outside. Josh Allen has some weapons. I think he's going to have a great year as we go forward.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. This was coming into the year. I think people thought this was still going to be more of a run first team. But over these first 2 weeks, Sean McDermott has really come out and let Josh Allen show everybody the growth that he's gone through. In week 1, he still fumbled the ball on some runs, and he has some turnovers. He needs to fix that issue still. But throwing the ball, this is a completely different guy than what we saw a year ago and 2 years ago. The development that we've seen from him is something that we keep hoping to see from a guy like Baker, right? But to see Josh Allen go out and ball out like that and still have some production with his legs, it's nice to see. This is a guy that a lot of people doubted coming into the league. He went to a smaller school in Wyoming, so people were kind of shitting on him when they came into the league. They thought the Bills were crazy for taking him, but he's proven all the doubters wrong. And because of his arm and his new weapon, Stephon Diggs, they have one of the top aerial assaults in the league right now, and that defense is tough, and they're looking really good right now.
Yeah, so I'm just going to, real quick, I'm just going to kind of touch on a couple things that you guys said. First of all, Allen's QB rating yesterday was 147. On top of everything else that you guys threw out, which, who else? Ryan Tannehill. So we're certainly seeing a passing of the guard here. With the quarterback shuffling we had this year, with Rivers moving and Cam moving and Brady moving, the old guard is kind of moving on from where they were. They got a couple years left. We're seeing guys step up, and certainly Tannehill and Josh Allen are 2 of those that are really stepping up and filling that void. The Bills, I know we've talked about this, and you both have tried to tell me, and I'm a believer. I'm sorry I didn't listen. I knew, and you would hear me say things like, I know they're good, but damn, this kid's impressing me. And the Bills, just like the Seahawks and Patriots, the Bills have my attention. They're moving up in what's going on. But I don't want to discount, and it sounds so cliche to do this with the Dolphins, but by all rights, Zach, you mentioned it. The Bills should have destroyed the Dolphins. If the Dolphins fit where everyone else is trying to make them fit, they should have destroyed them, whether it's in South Beach or not, or down in Miami or not. It doesn't matter. They should have destroyed them, and they didn't. And the Dolphins were still what defines a championship. Defines a champion in this league. And we talked about this yesterday. It's a game of inches, and what defines the winners, the champions are always in a position to win in the end, and they find that one play that finishes it. And so as the Dolphins progress, I have to think that in this situation, they were in a position to win the game. And a couple things go their way, a couple other decisions. They get a playmaker. Either they add a playmaker to their roster this year for next year, whatever. And that is the difference in the score from yesterday. I'm still on the Dolphins bandwagon. I still think they're right. They're on the rise.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if they'll hit the playoffs this year, but they're definitely a team that over the next 2 or 3 years is going to be an exciting team to watch.
I got a question for you guys.
What's
Uh,
that?
Can the Eagles salvage their season? It's early, but they are in a lot of trouble.
I don't know. Preseason, I had them winning the division, making the playoffs. From what I've seen week 1 and 2, it doesn't appear that's going to be the case. But depends. Carson Wentz just doesn't seem to be the player he was before he started getting injured, and I don't know if he'll ever be that player again. So we'll see what happens.
And that's a fair question for anybody in any sport. Injuries always change your outlook on the game and how you play the game, and you hate to see it, but it's a valid question.
See, and with the Eagles, I want to see because Carson Wentz has been relatively healthy himself recently, right? But last year and now this year, the team around him, everybody's getting hurt, so they keep losing games because the guys just aren't there. So it'd be nice to see the team that is supposed to be around him, Carson with all his weapons and his offensive line again, to see if it's just Carson or is it a product of being pressured almost half the dropbacks and your number one receiver wasn't there last week and you're I mean there are just so many people hurt for this team that it's hard to really judge like maybe if they do get four of these guys back from either the offense or defense, maybe they do make a run at the end of the season because they're in a weak division. But right now, it just looks like it's all hell in a handbasket, and it doesn't look good for them.
Okay, so the next question, and we've got a couple of these games we're going to ask this question. The Rams that good or the Eagles that bad?
The Rams are looking that good.
Yeah, I do believe the Rams are really good this year.
I agree.
Let me throw out some stats. Jared Goff, 20 for 27, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Rams rushers, 39 carries, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns. We'll throw a special note to Tyler Higbee, who had 5 receptions, 54 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So their offense is firing on all cylinders, it seems like, and their defense is playing well too. So I think the Rams might be back in it this year.
Yeah, this next game coming up for them is going to be a good one because they played the Cowboys week 1, and the Cowboys looked a little dysfunctional for the first 2 weeks until the last 5 minutes of their game. And then they played the Eagles. But they have the Bills this upcoming week. I'm excited to see that game. It's kind of going to be a good gauge for both. What are both these teams made of? I expect it to be a hard fought battle. But I think the Rams are good, and I think there's a lot of promise there. Jared Goff is playing at the level he was the year that they went to the Super Bowl. Robert Woods just got paid. He's balling out. Cooper Kupp's doing his thing. And like Zach said, Higbee is just another added weapon. And then they're using all the running backs. Cam Akers barely played the first week for the Rams, but he got the most carries until he got hurt and got forced out of the game. And he was looking good. And then they put Darrell Henderson in. He looked good. So
Malcolm Brown.
And Malcolm Brown again. They were using him, a litany of weapons on this team that Sean McVay is using. Jared Goff, like I said, he looks good. The offensive line, they look good again. The defense is getting a lot of pressure again this year, and the secondary is doing their job. So they look like a contender right now.
So that doesn't, again, that doesn't exactly help the San Francisco 49ers. This NFC West division looks like it may end up being one of the best divisions in football.
Yeah, right there with the NFC South, bunch of good teams.
Yeah. Which leads us right to the Panthers and Buccaneers. Brady had something to prove.
Welcome back, Tom Brady.
Welcome to Tampa, Tom. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, no kidding. He had 217 yards, touchdown, 1 pick, but more than that, Leonard Fournette showed up. 12 carries, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns.
So the Buccaneers, this is the whole Dennis Green thing. We are who they thought they were. I mean, the team that we expected them to be definitely showed up yesterday, and I'm happy to see it. Not that we didn't think they would, but all the second guessing that came after the Saints game just drove me nuts. We talked about that. I was just happy to see them kind of set the record straight, get everything lined in place and get in a place to start moving forward.
I didn't watch this game. I watched the highlights and I looked at the score sheet, and the score sheet says that the Panthers dominated this game. But Teddy Bridgewater had 3 or 4 turnovers in this game, which really helped out the Bucks here. So I'm not, like I said, I didn't watch the game. I just saw the highlights. So I'm not so inclined to say that the Bucks are off and running right now. I think that defense is taking a step up like we expected it to. They looked good the last half of last year, and they look like they're doing good again this year. And it was just the Panthers, and then Panthers defense is complete garbage. So you kind of expected the Bucks to be able to move the ball. But it's a learning thing. There's a lot that goes into a Bruce Arians offense. Everybody knows that. So you want to think it's probably going to take another 1 or 2 weeks for this team the offense to really get going. But you could see in this game without Chris Godwin there, which is probably a lot of the reason they couldn't move the ball as well as they would have liked to, but still look good. But Mike Evans looked really good. Him and Tom Brady are building a rapport, and they look good together today. So going forward, a lot of big hopes for the Buccaneers. That's pretty much it.
I will note Christian McCaffrey went down with a high ankle sprain, expected to miss several weeks. So that hurts Carolina a lot, obviously.
Yeah, and a team that is already struggling to stay competitive, it certainly is devastating, I would think.
Yeah, and they had a backup come in. I believe his name is Mike Davis. He didn't, look terrible by any means, but he's not Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. Not very many people are on that level.
I got another question for you. Are the Jags for real? Is this another one of those, the Jags that good or the Titans that bad?
Dude, I don't know, man. I didn't anticipate them to beat the Colts week 1. I didn't anticipate this game to be as close as it was. So I don't know.
And we talk a lot about the interdivision games, and so it's one of those things. Maybe they're just competing harder against them because they know a lot of the same personnel. But the Jags are just surprising people. Gardner Minshew's playing well. The offense is playing well. Keenan Cole is the number one receiver there right now, and he's playing really well for Gardner. And the defense has stepped up and done their thing. They're letting up points, but for a young defense that let a lot of people go, this team all around is just playing a lot better. Just seem to be one of those teams that's going to nag people this year. Maybe they lose most of their games, but they're just going to be competitive in games for some reason.
I will give them some kind of credit, though. I mean, they held Derrick Henry again to 3.36 yards per carry. So I don't know what's going on with Henry. I mean, are the defenses he's playing, the Broncos and the Jags, that good, or is something going on with him? Is it a cause for concern?
Well, no, because the Broncos defense looked pretty good this week too. So I think there's something to be said there. He has gone up against 2 stout front sevens. So I don't want to say that Derrick Henry's taking his money and running and taking it easy now, but we have seen that in the past. So hopefully this isn't that situation. But he's an animal. That dude's like 6'4", 260 or something. So once he gets in his rhythm this season, he'll be fine.
Yeah, and I have to say, from a coaching standpoint, at this point, I mean, this sounds a little weird because we have continually talked about how we feel Tannehill is a good quarterback, but when it comes down to game preparation, you deal with what is right in front of you, and Derrick Henry is the problem in Tennessee, and for everything that he's done, and Tannehill is not. as of yet, right? I mean, we have hindsight now. We have the stats from yesterday with a 2-0 start. But as a coach, as you're preparing, the number one priority up until this point, until week 1 and week 2, has been to make sure you stop Derrick Henry and make sure Ryan Tannehill beat you, which is exactly what he's done. So from here on out, it starts to change. So that could have a lot to do with this, that the teams are just making sure that if the Titans are going to win, then it's going to be Tannehill doing it. It's not going to be Derrick Henry. That's my input on it. I don't know if that I mean, I'm sure what I just said was accurate. I don't know if that's the entire scenario or the entire reason what we're seeing.
Well, and I'd like to point out that Tannehill in this game only completed 18 passes, but had 4 touchdown passes, and that was without his number one receiver, A.J. Brown. So, I mean, he, without his best weapon, he's still one of the most, if not the most, efficient quarterback in the league. You know, he's not turning the ball over. He's completing 75% of his passes again, and he's just balling out. They don't need Derrick Henry to kill it to win, and they've showed that the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I might throw in that it was his 9th straight game throwing 2 or more touchdown passes. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's getting up to that Peyton Manning level.
Yeah, that'll certainly win games for you if you're putting 14 points on the game minimum, for 14 points on the board per game minimum. That'll win you games.
Yeah, especially when your defense is nice and stout like theirs is.
What about Minshew? Is he everything that the Jags fans say he is?
I mean, he had more of a mediocre game. He still put up 339 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he did turn it over twice. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with Minshew still.
Yeah, it's easy to like the guy, but it's also easy to laugh at the guy. Right? He's got this Hollywood cartoonish kind of character, and a lot of it's intentional. Right? He does the whole Uncle Rico thing, and he's got the stash, and a lot of it's for publicity, and I think it's a testament to his personality. I think he's laid back and he's fun and that kind of thing. But it also makes it easy to make fun of him, and which also makes it easy to not take him seriously. And I don't know where I fall into that category, if I'm misreading or whatever. But so far, he beat the Colts. Now there's a lot to that, but in the end, it was a W. And he damn near beat the Titans, and he did put up 300 yards. So this kid could be for real.
Yeah. There's always that potential, and he's shown the potential. You know, he had 2 interceptions this game, but generally isn't a guy that turns the ball over much. He can be mobile when he needs to. You know, that's how he killed the Colts. He was able to get away from that pass rush and rush for a first down here or there, find a guy outside the pocket. So there, you know, that added danger is always gonna be there for him. So he could be the real deal, you know. But like you said, I thought about that too. The fact that his persona might be the reason I don't take him as seriously as I maybe should. But also the team around him is full of guys nobody knows. So, like, you know, how are we supposed to take this team seriously at all? But they've performed well in the first 2 weeks here.
Well, I say all the time that it's hard to win a fight with someone that has nothing to lose. And right now, the Jags have nothing to lose. It's a whole team of nobodies. I mean, nobody knows who they are. Nobody expects them to do anything. Everybody's expecting them to be at the bottom of the division, if not the league, and they're swinging. So when you play hard, good things happen. It's still the NFL. It's still professional football, and the champions are going to weed themselves out. I mean, are going to rise to the top. But for right now, I'm impressed with what the Jacksonville's done so far. That's
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to spend too much time on a couple of these games. Washington, the Cardinals. Washington has a lot of problems. The Cardinals don't. We've already talked about that. Anything you guys want to throw in about those games that stood out?
Just Kyler Murray, he's looking good. 286 yards, touchdown, interception. He also had 67 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And DeAndre Hopkins, 8 receptions, 68 yards and a touchdown. So they look good the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and there's no surprise with the big win yesterday against the Washington football team. Same thing with the Packers and the Lions. Interdivision, the Lions hung on early, but we talked about this yesterday during the game. It doesn't surprise me that the Lions everything had to go their way for them to be in the game, and a team like the Packers in the second half just pulled away and made it look easy and did what they needed to do. Matt Patricia's on the hot seat. I think him and Gase will be fishing together in the off season, trying to figure out what the hell went wrong, which they need to. But and I like Matt Patricia. I'm not trying to beat on the guy either. I'd be too critical, but he's overextended his welcome in Detroit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like last year and this year. I mean, both games already this year and a bunch of games last year. You either start hot and then can't do anything after the first quarter, or you take a lead into the fourth quarter and you lose it. And to me, that just speaks to Matt Patricia and his coaching staff getting out coached every week. You can't, I mean, how do you let this guy keep his job? He's literally losing the game for you every week. Him and his coaches losing the game. Like, you have Matt Stafford and Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones. Like, how is this offense not doing more? How are you losing these games? And to me, it boils down to Matt Patricia.
Yeah, and I think that goes into what we were talking about with Gase earlier. I think it's because in the conversation with ownership and management, Matt Patricia knows what he's talking about, so he has the right answers. But having it in your head or having it on paper and putting it out on the field are two completely different things. This is why I think, we talked about Gase. He needs to go back to being a coordinator somewhere. Even Dan Quinn, go back, be a coordinator somewhere, pick up a few more tricks, sort things out in your head, and come back and give it a shot later. I think Patricia falls in that category.
I will say that Brian Campbell, who we had on our podcast earlier in the year, big Lions fan, sent me a text last night, and I feel bad for the guy, man. He said the Lions should trade us Stafford, the Colts, because they have failed him as an organization, and he deserves better. So that's Patricia's head coach, so I think that kind of hits it right on the head there.
Yeah, and that's
your own fans are turning on you now.
Yeah, and we, diehard fans have a proclivity to not see things accurately. It's always that, no matter how bad things are, we always think that our organization, that changes right around the corner. And when you have diehard fans like Brian giving up, he's given up. He's like, this isn't going to work. It's the whole Barry Sanders thing. And I hate it for the Lions organization as a whole. Just so many years of kind of going through this thing. So Stafford doesn't need to go. Patricia does.
And I was talking to him about it. I feel bad for Stafford because he's a great quarterback. He's probably one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. And if he was on a winning team, there's no telling what he could do. But he's been stuck on the Lions. It's kind of like Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders. I mean, you just feel for the guys.
Yeah, we talked about Barry Sanders being behind that Dallas Cowboys offensive line in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
He probably would have gotten 24,000 rushing yards. They probably would have never touched his records.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not much of an exaggeration. I mean, that guy worked magic with nothing, and which is what they're asking Stafford to do. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I hope he goes he seems like a really loyal kind of guy. I hope he just decides to go somewhere and try to win a ring, dude. He's been so good.
Okay, Broncos and Steelers. Is there much to talk about here? I mean, we expected the Steelers to win. I didn't expect it to be this close. The Broncos seemed to scrape to get back in it. But in the end, the Steelers pulled out a much-needed home win. You guys got anything you want to add?
Some news coming with the Broncos. Drew Lock went out with a severe rotator cuff strain. He's out 2 to 6 weeks. Cortland Sutton tore his ACL. He's out for the season. So don't look for the Broncos to get any better.
Before we hype up the Steelers here, this is a team that just had 10 penalties. We've talked about Mike Tomlin and how great of a coach he is, but this team yesterday had 10 penalties and they were 2 for 12 on third down. Big Ben was missing passes that we normally see him make. So whether it's rust and the whole preseason deal and they're trying to get going still, but but the offense didn't look like the Pittsburgh offense from 3-4 years ago. They're definitely slowing down, and the Broncos look kind of like the Jags, look better than what we thought. I think losing Drew Lock is not a huge deal. Jeff Driscoll didn't look terrible yesterday against Steelers defense. Noah Fant looks like a superstar tight end in the making. So there's some things with both these teams that you're a little worried about, but both these teams have a lot of promise.
Yeah, and that's a good point about the penalties. We've talked about excessive penalties are a sign of lack of discipline coming out of from the top of the organization down. And it's a sign that a coach has lost control. Now, I don't want to put that label on Tomlin yet because it is a weird season. They didn't have the preseason. But one of two things are going to happen. Tomlin's already had a tirade in the locker room and going to have it during game film and the rest of the week and not put up with it. Or this is going to be a signal of things to come that Tomlin's reign in Pittsburgh may come to an end. We've already talked about it. He was 8-8 the last two seasons. So it's time for him to step up and win another game or two. I mean, we need to be 9-7 or 10-6. We need to get Steelers back in contention. And I believe in him. I believe he has the ability to do that. But if these penalties are an indication of it going the other direction, this could not be good for the Pittsburgh franchise.
Dude, I hope so. Honestly, hey, I'm a Colts fan. No love lost for the season. I hope so.
Yeah, I'm not a Steelers fan either. When I was a kid, the only people who were Steelers fans were bandwagon fans because they were good in the 70s, and those people are either Steelers fans today or they're Patriots fans. Not to throw any family members under the bus.
Ooh, savage.
Yeah, which is no one on this podcast, I want to say. But I do respect Mike Tomlin and what he's done, and we have to give credit where credit's due. He's a hell of a coach and done a really good job in Pittsburgh. So we'll see.
Yep.
All right. So this is the recurring question of the week: are the Ravens that good, or are the Texans that bad?
Yeah, I think it's both. The Texans look like absolute dog shit right now, but the Ravens are firing on all cylinders. 230 rushing yards, 200 passing yards. You can't ask for better balance. They have a dominant defense. It's dominant in every way, shape, and form. Deshaun Watson is another one of those guys that it's unfortunate he just signed an extension because I'd like to see him go somewhere that has better coaching and a better team around him because Bill O'Brien has absolutely destroyed the team that was around him. But I just think the Ravens are really good and the Texans are really bad.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff on that. I do want to note that David Johnson, 11 carries, 34 yards. So you trade away DeAndre Hopkins, who's had 2 great weeks over in Arizona, for David Johnson, who didn't do anything this game. So we'll see how that goes. I also want to note that Tavon Young, the cornerback for Baltimore, out for the season with a knee injury. He's another one that got plagued by the injuries yesterday.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I also like to point out that the Ravens had 4 rushers over 50 yards. That includes Lamar Jackson. They just, J.K. Dobbins had actually 2 rushes for almost 50 yards. So I think the Ravens, this score wasn't even as close as it was. The Ravens, again, to quote Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were. And we called it with the Texans. It's unfortunate because the Texans were poised last year to take a step up. But we talked about in the preseason, we all three expected them to take a step backwards. It appears that's exactly what they've done. And I don't expect them to contend. I'm concerned about the Titans being 2-0 and the Colts. We all think the Colts are the dominant team in this division, but it comes down to wins and losses. And right now, the Titans have that advantage. So we'll see where that goes. But I certainly don't think the Texans. I think at this point are just spoilers if they can get home wins against their division rivals and disrupt people's mojo. But they look bad.
Yeah, it's crazy that after 2 weeks, it only took us 2 weeks to get to a point where we're flip flopping the Jags and the Texans. The Jags are going to be more maybe middle of the pack-ish, and the Texans just look like they might be a top 5 pick, honestly.
The Texans have to travel to Pittsburgh next week. There's a possibility of 0-3. Then they play Minnesota. Now, I originally thought that could potentially be an 0-4 game. As of right now, I have to give the Texans enough props that I don't see the Vikings going down to Texas, down to Houston and beating them. But they potentially could start out 1-3, start out 0-3, and then be 1-3 if they pick up against the Vikings. So they are already in a hole that appears to be getting deeper.
Yep, absolutely. 100% agree.
Indianapolis motherfucking Colts, baby.
Yeah, coming alive this weekend.
This was good. Which brings me to the question we've asked a couple of other games. Are the Colts that good, or are the Vikings that bad? And one makes me look good and the other one makes me look bad because I've been high on the Vikings this year. I thought they were really putting pieces in place, but they got a lot of problems.
We talked about this as the game was going on, and the thing with the Vikings is they played Green Bay week 1. I predicted Green Bay to be the number 1 team in the NFC, so that kind of didn't surprise me. I also have the Colts being the number 3, number 4 team in the AFC. So both teams that the Vikings played were pretty good. So it doesn't surprise me that they lost both games. But the Vikings looked bad against the Colts. Cousins was 11 for 26, only 113 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The rushers had 18 carries for 80 yards. So they look bad. I want to contribute it to it being against the Packers and the Colts. But if you're going to continue to play this way, they may not be as good as we thought they were.
Yeah, and I want to say that it's a little bit of both for these. Like, I think the Colts are that good, and I think the Vikings kind of are that bad. I think the Vikings have the talent to do some things, but it's like the ghost of Kevin Stefanski is just lingering around there and not running that offense that works so well for Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen. They're just trying to either run the ball or throw the ball. We didn't see them try much play action at all during that game. And that's where Kirk Cousins has been the best in his career, is on play action passes down the field. So I also think that Colts defense, I mean, we got Rocky Sin in the draft last year. We already had Kenny Moore, who is the best slot corner in the league. And we brought in Xavier Rhodes in that secondary. And while Malik Hooker went down with what's believed to be a torn Achilles in this game, we drafted Julian Blackmon. And Julian Blackmon, it was his debut game, and because he wasn't there for it in week 1, but he looked like a star. Yeah, there was one of the interceptions down the field. He got the tip on it where Kerry Willis got the catch, and there was another interception. I think he got an interception. So he played a hell of a game for his first game, and he was huge there in the safety position. The secondary, it did what I expected them to be able to do. Darius was everywhere. It seemed like every other tackle, Darius was right there with the ball.
I have to agree with that. I agree wholeheartedly.
Saw him on TV all day long. He was everywhere. The defensive line, we traded. They made the trade for DeForest Buckner. They paid Justin Houston to come in last year, and there was one sack yesterday where those two guys met the quarterback at the same time, and it was reminiscent of the old 98, 93 Bring the Heat Boulevard. And to see the Colts defense, the first week we let the Jags get 285, and I said last week, any defense that doesn't let an NFL offense get to 300 yards this day and age in the NFL had a really good week. Well, the Vikings only had 175 yards of offense, and I don't care how you sliced it up, who was bad, who was good. That's a hell of a game. and the offense did their thing, but the thing that the Colts need to work on is getting that offense in the end zone. They got to stop kicking field goals because against the better team, it's going to cost you a game like it did in week one. So,
Agreed.
so you got to fix that.
Mhm.
They did better in week two than they did in week one. They moved the ball better overall. It's worrisome to me that Paris Campbell's out. T.Y. Hilton doesn't look like the same player he used to be. And Paris Campbell was believed to be the new number one. He looked really good week one, even though he lost. And luckily, it's not like an ACL tear. It looked really bad. Harrison Smith hit him low on his planted leg, and it looked really bad. But it's just from what I hear so far, it's just believed to be a PCL strain, and he's out indefinitely. There's no timetable on that yet, but he should be back in the lineup at some point this season, which is cool. So it's unfortunate that we lost him, but what I was talking about and what we talked about coming into the year is that the Colts are so deep on both sides of the ball that if we get a couple of these injuries pop up, we're deep enough that it doesn't matter. And you could see when we lost Marlon Mack week one, we lost Paris Campbell in the Colts second play, we lost Malik Hooker in the second quarter,
Jack
and
Doyle, Trey Burton.
Jack Doyle and Trey Burton. We were on our third string tight end, and it just doesn't matter. And we're really deep. The coaching staff is doing a good job. So if they can just get the offense into the end zone more often than kicking field goals, this is a Super Bowl favorite in my opinion.
Yeah, and we talked about that yesterday. And during the game, I kept reminding you, no matter what the score was, I was like, like the final score was 28-11. It should have been 44-11. Those, I think, a lot of people just are happy with a field goal because you put points on the board, not realizing when you get, that 16 points that they left on the field will haunt them in the playoffs. This problem has to be fixed. But with that said, I thought Rivers looked much better. He looked. It looked like they were keeping him constrained. They were letting him short passing routes. There were timing routes. He had control over what was going on, which I think is good. And we talked about that yesterday too. That if I was Rivers and Reich after game one, we sit down and say, let's reel this in a little bit. Let's get something manageable because he's so new to the offense. I mean, the guy just came in here, right? So let him be successful. Let him throw some short routes. Let him get some control. Let him make some things happen. Don't put him in positions where he's going to have to be forced to make a decision. Let him get his confidence back. I mean, the guy threw an ass load of interceptions last year. And I don't care who you are, at what level you're playing, you still have – there's still a psychology to the game. And every time it leaves his hand, he's worried about throwing an interception, which changes the way he plays. So give the guy some confidence. Let him build it back up. Let guys get confidence in him. Get them – and I think they did a very, very good job of that yesterday. I think they will get this problem figured out. But thank God we got Hot Rod. This guy, respect the specs, right? 4 for 4, like Mr. Automatic. I'm glad he's here. So the good thing about this conversation is having this problem early. You let Rodrigo build his confidence. Everybody got his confidence. You get the problem solved. And when you need him to win a game, you got him standing right there ready to do so. Just another step in building this franchise upward that I think. And as far as the Vikings, a lot of people are criticizing Cousins. This is the Ryan Tannehill thing. I've been high on the Vikings. I like what Zimmer's doing there, but I'll be damned if I'm going to put all this blame on Kirk Cousins. He's a hell of a quarterback. He's got too much pressure on him. And the winners that have pressure do things they wouldn't normally do to try to make things happen. And when it doesn't work, they look bad. So they've got a lot of problems they got to fix, take some pressure and tension off him. Vikings fans, don't run. You'll be sorry. Quarterbacks are hard to come by, and they know that. Don't run this guy out beforehand. I'm not ready to fire Zimmer. I don't want to go that direction, but you're not going to run Sam Darnold out of New York. You're going to get rid of Gase. So be patient and don't be so hard on Cousins. And hopefully the Vikings can get this turned around because I think they've got too much. And I don't want to play them up like I think they're a Super Bowl contender because I don't. Being a contender for the division and being a top top prospect to make it the Super Bowl. Two completely different things. We're seeing some of these other teams out of the NFC emerge. I thought, and I still think, that the Ravens and the Chiefs are heads and shoulders above everybody else. But some of that's changing with some of these other NFC teams. And so the Vikings, no matter what they do, they can't ultimately compete in the playoffs with the Cardinals and the Packers and the Seahawks and some of these other teams. But they're still better than this. And I really want to see them get it turned around. If nothing else, for the Vikings fans.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't hate them like I hate the Patriots.
Well, real quick, just a shout out to Jonathan Taylor. His first career start, 26 carries, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. Looked like an absolute monster. I look forward to watching him going forward. I think Marlon Mack is going to be shipped out, if not this year, next year, hopefully. But Jonathan Taylor proved that he can be a very good back in this league.
Yeah,
and shout out to – yeah, go ahead.
It really sucks for Marlon Mack. He's in a contract here, right?
I don't know. He might be.
4th year of his rookie contract, I believe.
This is where a guy gets paid, and I hate to see it because he deserves to get paid. But this is the kind of thing that he's going to have to go somewhere, probably on a 1-year contract, and prove himself again to try to get a bigger contract. And you hate it for the guy, but we're happy Taylor's here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Chris Ballard's all about culture, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Ballard found a way to keep Marlon Mack on the roster. If you wanted to, if Marlon could go and get $20 million from somebody to be their starter, obviously you would do that. But assuming that somebody's going to be, or everybody's going to be too cautious to pay a guy coming off an Achilles injury like that, I could see Chris Ballard doing something to keep Marlon around because the locker room loves him.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to keep Mack on the roster. I like Marlon Mack, but I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor showing up like he did. If you get Mack to re-sign for a low salary cap hit, that'd be great. If you could get good trade value out of him, that'd be great too.
So that's where that's going to go. He's not going to stay here. He's too good to stay here. I would love him to. Now, crazier things have happened. You get good people sitting at the table. I want to give you what you want, but I don't have it. But here's what I can give you. And the guy's like, I like the organization. I like what we're doing. I like where we're headed. I think we can win. I'll take it. But that is so rare. These guys, their life, their future is bigger than the game. And these guys got to get paid. And they got to get paid big because they never know when the last time they're going to touch a football is going to be. And I would say, as much as I love this fairy tale scenario that we're talking about, it's probably not going to happen. Yeah. I would love for it to, and I hate to dash everything, but the guy deserves to be paid. But it goes back to, he's going to have to take a 1-year contract. Does he want to do that? The Colts may offer him something long term, and on the flip side, he's shoring up his future with a long term contract with some guaranteed money. It'll be interesting to see what happens. It's just, man, it's unfortunate he went down the contract here. I just hate it for him.
For sure.
So,
yeah, Malik Hooker too. It's Malik Hooker's 4th year out of his 5-year contract, or his rookie contract, which I don't believe they picked up his 5th-year option anyways. But he also tore his Achilles in his 4th year, so it's a tough time to be those guys.
All right, so let's run down our pick'em real quick. This week there were 3 of us that only missed 1 game, and that would be Willie on the west side, and yours truly, and Hefe.
That's right.
That's right. Everybody else sucking hind tit and bringing up the rear, not to throw anybody under the bus.
Hey, now.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Unfortunately, we have an outsider still leading this contest. Overall, Ricky entry 1 is still he's leading with 25, and we have what looks like a 4-way tie for 2nd place with Willie on the west side. 3-way tie. Willie on the west side, yours truly, and Hefe. And
Yeah, rub it in.
But Zach, you're not in last. David 3 is in last place. So
Well, if you ain't first, you're last.
I see dragging everybody down with you. Remember, you can still get in our pick'em and compete against us week to week. If you're a winner, we'll announce your name on the air. If you're overall winner, we've got prizes for you. But we'd like you to just have fun, and maybe, who knows, maybe we'll have you come on the podcast. And if you beat us regularly, we'll have you come in and give us some tips and some information to help us do our job a little better. But
I also want to throw out there, the Patriots were missing James White. He was inactive last night because his father passed away in a car accident on Sunday morning, and his mother's in the ICU. So condolences go out to him.
Yeah, that's terrible. We wish them the best. God, I hate to hear that. Some things are just bigger than the game, right?
Yep.
All right, so we appreciate you checking in on the week 2 recap. Be sure to check out the other episode that will be ready right behind this one for Zach and Jeff will break down your fantasy numbers to get you ready for the waiver wire on Wednesday, and then be sure to check in with us on Wednesday for the week 3 preview episode. We'll see you Wednesday.
See ya.